Good evening, all of you, sir.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Thank you very much, sir. Today we are going to discuss about, as per schedule, the safety engineering 2 103 is 103 3.3, where in that 3.2.3 article is hazards in the process of melting furnaces, hazards in the process of the melting, that is casting furnaces, hazards in the process of the forging furnaces. Next, hazards in the process of working on hot rolling and cold rolling, and hazards in the process of ND test, that is non-destructive test, hazards in the process of heat treatment. These are the things to be taken care of today. But how far we can complete, we depending upon the continuation of the classes. We can treat as first of all hazards in the process of the melting furnaces, because the furnaces who are not having the blast furnaces, who are having the blast furnaces, they will melt the furnace. They will spray the what is called this the scrap material and raw materials, make the steel according to the customer requirement. But in the normal course of the steel plants, there we called we prepared the beams, the channels, the wires, as well as the product specification as per the steel plant. We can do it. But whereas in the process of the melting furnaces, they purchase the molten metal according to the requirement at their facilities in the organization. They will prepare the castings after melting the molten melt received from the various, like I already told, the ready mixing concrete, how we are getting in the ladles, we will get the melting, the molten spelt also. So in the first of all, what are the hazards in the process of the melting furnaces here is fire and explosion, where the toxic fumes and the heat and molten metal, and safety tips here is some of the safety tips is also will be given here is. Coming to this, next one is I will tell you one by one. The hazards continuation is radiation exposure is there, electric shock is there, the noise is there, and trauma injuries is there. Trauma injuries also we will discuss in next class, next slides. Coming to the various hazards process in the melting furnaces. Melting in furnace can be hazardous due to fire, explosion, toxic fumes, heat, and radiation. The fire and explosion, flammable materials like paper, cloths can catch the fire if they are sucked into the furnace is there. The release and ignition of flammable explosive substances can cause fires and explosions. These are the hazards, may potential risks also there in the process of the melting furnaces. Toxic fumes also releases because of the molten smelt is melting, whereas what is called things are adding up the additives, like in the ore is having the gong material like the waste materials and all, due to which it will come in the what we call as a toxic fumes also, very dangerous to inhale and exhale of the workforce. We have to see very carefully safety measures also. Exposure to toxic metal furnaces, that means fumes, carbon monoxide, and other toxic gas. Carbon monoxide, though it is a more unstable, immediately by catching the oxygen becomes CO2. But before catching CO by the oxygen to become a CO2, but carbon monoxide is very dangerous in between. That's why we call it as a toxic film. We have to see that it should be extracted in the extraction system very carefully. and we will be discussing about the safety measures in the furnace melting also in the coming slides also after the hazards. Hazardous chemical exposures can result from hot process that produces fumes, because how the chemical exposure is there, because of which reason the toxic fumes will be released. And heat and molten metal, because we are getting the molten metal, or we are getting the molten metal in the furnace, or we are purchasing from the besides industries, the like ready mix concrete, like this molten melt also in ladles we will prepare and preparing at our end, and the blocks and all these things. Whereas working with molten metal can cause severe injuries, including burns from contact with hot surfaces and materials. Nose. Radiant heat, because the what is meant by radiant, you already know, the absence of material medium transfer from heat from one place to another place. Radiant heat, because of the melt having the about 2000 degrees centigrade, the radiant heat and molten metal splashes can cause severe injuries and prove to be a fatal also, because while drawing the melt from the furnace to the tank, where the spillages are will be taken place of, the spillages will be very dangerous. Sometimes it takes the fatal role also. So in which the safety tips we can use, keep flammable objects away from the furnace. We have to see that we have to ensure that any flammable materials are there nearby the furnace or nearby workforce, that should be clear of there, because it will be catch fire. Regular checks and clean the area where the furnace is installed. We have to see that these are the things are very, very nominal. Everybody knows, but the because of the urgency, because of the production impact, because of the production tension, because of the management giving some pressures and all, we have to forget all these things to taken care of. That is why some minimum safety tips here is given. First of all, we have to see that because whatever the adding materials here is, or the storing materials here is near the furnace or near the molten melt, we have to see that nearby the flammable objects should not be there. And for which we have to see that every inspection to be done daily before taking care of the shift or shift initiation of the time by the employees also. Adherence to the safety signs and warnings. What are the display signs are there? Strictly we have to adherence and see that the ensure that the first aid person, the qualified first aid person, and the ER team member, like emergency response team members available in the shift or not, we have to find out before uh, taking into the shift into the in your hand. Radiation exposure is also there, because the melt having the what is called high temperature, the molten melt, because of the intense ultraviolet rays and infrared radiation rays, which cannot be seen by human eye from molten metal, can cause eye disorders and skin burns also. Because of the high temperatures, because of the ore content or ore nature, or because of the gang material, where the impurities content in the ore melting and all, and the molten melt is also having the fumes in the form of ultraviolet rays and infrared, because of they are not by the naked eye, they are not in the visible region like we are, like a rainbow. That's why we have to be very careful. Unless otherwise, it is very dangerous to the can cause cause eye disorders and skin burners also. Electric shock, though it is not related, but where we are using the tapping of the molten metal from the mm, what we call the furnace, blast furnace. Normally, some FD fan and ID fans, like supplying air and inducing fan, ID fan, take care of the to the ESPs and all. FD fans means forced draft fan, ID fan, induced draft fan, where the electrical supply is there, and also burners also will be taken care of the electrical connections where the heating element is there for the pipelines to maintain the easy flow of LHS or the furnace oil through the burners burning in the boiler. That's why there may be the shock of the electrical while running the boiler also, while handling the molten melt. Of course, the noise is there where the you have to see that a lot of nearby compressor air is required, compressors nearby furnace, and we have to see that the sound will be in a position to taken care of like the 75 decibels not above. But where the 75 decibels above, we have to see that shock absorbers or minimize some barriers to be taken care of, or otherwise we have to use the earmuffs, not earplugs. And trauma injury is very, very important here is, though it is not suddenly it will happen, but it is very unusually or usually it can taken care of by the workforce where the weakness is there, where they can capture very easy by workforce near working in the molten furnace areas. For example, violent rupture of the reaction vessel can cause trauma injuries. For example, trauma can caused by a blunt or penetrating forces. Common causes of the trauma includes falls, road traffic crashes, assaults, and burns. Because here is one of the causes here is burns. Where the road traffic crashes means where the inside the harness also lot of traffic is there in the sense of what is called moving from molten metal through the ladders from one place to another place for the casting or for the different process and all, and thereby people may fall into the floor also. That is, we have to see that the trauma injuries also may expose it to the during the process of the melting furnace and all. Examples is brain injuries, spinal injuries, bone fractures, crush injuries, burns, cuts and punctures wounds, and traumatic abdominal injuries, and traumatic amputations, and the traumatic brain injuries to in children. Why it is children we called as here is, I know the children why here mentioned here is, though the Child Labor Act is there, no organization can accommodate the child labor in the organization. But as a workforce, they have to know the parent should know the intensify or intensification of the injuries involved in the process of the melting furnaces. Should know about the during the education of their employee children's. We have to be very careful. In some of the what is called in some of the students they are coming from the various units like for example internship and all, they are crossing though the children age, but we have to educate that people there is a traumatic brain injuries is there because of the various fumes are they released in the atmosphere. And the blunt cardiac trauma is also there. The blunt cardiac trauma can range from minor changes to the heartbeat to severe cardiac failures and death also. Because the trauma injuries means what the telling is violent rupture of the reaction vessel can cause immediately. Immediate what is called the sudden shock of the release of the furnace or release of the blast or release of the explosion or release of the melt spillage and all. The brain immediately the workforce will be getting disturbed where it attacks the brain and spinal cord so by falling on these things. Though it is not happening, but a very the traumatic examples injuries are less as compared to the statistics. But there may be the chance of happening the traumatic injuries during the process of the melting furnaces and all. If you know these are the electrical and fire and industrial furnaces where the burner is catching fire, the molten melt here is the spout is there. This horizontal method is there, a spout, as well as this where this melt is coming like this. The burner positions also it is like this. You open the oil, it will go and furnace. This one I want to show the what is called shape of the blast furnace. Though you know, the furnace and all these things are barely on the. This is the shape of what is called what we are going to see if you visit the steel plants and all. The blast furnace overall diagram is also there, where the chutes is there, conveyor through the blast furnace. Again, dough comer, the gases will be extracted. Like this, various steps we already are known in the last previous classes and last week classes. And somehow I want to give it to remind that this is the blast furnace where the gases will go through the chimney also, through the ESP and all this thing. And there may be the chance of the blasting also by taking care of the unsafe acts, unsafe conditions, sir. And further, what is called, this is a process flow sheet is there, not in detail, but this is the one of the various all operations are taken by the steel plant. The blast furnace part only I'm telling here is. That's why what I want to say here is the hazards, potential hazards is more. That's what we want to say. The electric shock, arms, upper and lower and like this. There are the what is called lot of surrounding what we discussed in the hazards here is lot of hazards will be taken care of all these injuries and all these things. That's why while running the furnace process of casting process of the melting furnaces, you have to be very careful by taking care of the molten melt or the smelt in the furnaces. We have to be taken care of. Very dangerous also because of the electrical as well as the HC cables and the ETPs, FTPs and all these things where we are using the different pipelines and all this. Now the second one is casting gear. Is the casting, you know that way we are taking the molten metal from the various industries in the cadles. There we are preparing before taking the molten metal into the pouring into the casting. First, we have to prepare the casting, which shape you want, whether the blocks you want or the any other vertical casting is there or any other shapes is there. As per the customer requirement, we will prepare the blocks depending upon the customer requirement. Each customer having the different types of blocks required. That's why where the casting industries, the process of casting industries, normally they will take they are not having any blast furnaces. They were not having any ore and all things. They will get the raw or molten molten smelt in the ready-mixed concrete like in the ladles. There, after getting the ladles, they are preparing the castings. In the casting, they are pouring the whatever the material they want, whatever the shape want, they want to prepare. That is the casting here. Uh, the casting is a process of the pouring a molten metal material into a mold. That means what is shape it is, so that it solidifies into the mold shape. Definitely, it is a cone shape we want. Is the what is called round shape we want. It was then like for example rectangle block. What is we have what is square block. Whatever the casting mold shape we want, we will prepare the casting materials. Already we discussed in the last week what is the material of the castings to withstand the molten metal. Therefore, casting is the process of the pouring metal, that is pouring of molten material, where the industry is getting in the form of ladles into a mold, so that it solidifies after some time by taking the atmosphere air into mold's shape. What is the mold shape is there, it will be taken. Casting can be used to create a variety of products, including metal objects, decorative elements, and structural components. Because on the basis of the mold shape, the customers from the cast process indices, they'll purchase the molds, and there they will take to their industries and get there again melting and all. In the process, whereas in the processing of casting furnace itself, they're preparing their first mold shape, then again melting, and again they're preparing that metal objectives and depending upon the customer requirement, decorative elements and structural components also. And how does the casting work here? A mold is created in the shape of the desired object. It's one. Second one is molten material is poured into the mold. Yes. What is the material? The molten metal getting in the ladles from the various industries from your customer. Then it will be poured in the mold. The material is allowed to solidify. After taking some time, it will be solidified. And then mold is removed, revealing the finishing object. So after the removal of the mold, again that will be taken into the finished object as per the customer requirement and all. The types of casting also important here is sand casting, die casting, because the casting while casting of this molten malt also lot of hazards will be potential hazards are there. That's why here we are in a position to discuss about the type of casting also, though it is related with the hazards associated and the safety measure to prevent taken care of by the workforce. The sand casting, die casting, first one is sand casting here is a traditional method that uses a sand mold, and sand casting is economical and can be used for both small and large batches, because in the molten we have articles some sand will be surfaces of the mold will be sand will be spilled, and then the molten melt will be there. Because of the sand is there, immediately it will be removed from the mold itself. Die casting is also there, a method that is uses two hardened steel dies to create a mold cavity. Die casting is suited for high volume production. For example, if you see this, one of the figure I am preparing here is the die casting here is, what is the example is, this is separate. This is two blocks are there. Locating pin we can as, we can add both. And first of all, the position is like this. First position is like this. Second position is like this. And pouring the molten metal. After removal of these two blocks, this casting shape is like this. This is what is meant by what we call is a die cast, a method that uses two hardened steel dies to create a mold cavity. Two hardened steel material. The cavity is there, the gap is there, the holes. The holes we have to pour the runner of razor, and we have to see that it should be cooled to some extent, and then remove it through the pins. The casting will be shaped like this. This is hard dry casting. If you take the sand means the sand will be poured in this. The one block is there, not two blocks. One block is there. Sand will be poured, and then poured means again it will be tilted. It will be easily come out the molten metal are shaped in this. That is sand casting. Whereas die casting already shown in this. The die casting is investment casting is also very important. The traditional method that uses the sand mold, sand casting economical, already discussed. A method that uses the two hardened steel, create a mold cavity. Die casting is suited to the high volume production. Where the high volume productions is there, we have to use these methods, because of this type of blocks is maybe 50 to 100 will be there in the process, depending upon the order of the customer. We have to prepare in the two blocks like this of different shapes as per the customer requirement, where the die casting is there. Whereas the investment casting is a method that uses the wax pattern to create a ceramic mold. Investment casting is expensive and labor intensive also, because but compared to the sand casting and die casting, the investment casting is very high. where the wax has to be, first of all, we have to apply in the cast surfaces inside. Cast means inside the what is called mold, and then they pour the what is called this molten melt. That's why it is coming very costly. The wax is also selection is very very important because that should not be melt with molten metal where while pouring. That's why to create this ceramic mold, we can call as for example, we can have what is called the ceramic like this. Investment casting is expensive, and whereas the labor intensive also more in this because the ceramic is very delicate, not like a metal shaped. The ceramic is almost all where we are doing the ceramic means we are storing the pickles. We are kitchen utensils the 10 minutes. The kitchen utensils, the ceramics is very delicate, and we have to have what is called the a lot of investment is necessary in the factories of the investment casting center. And centrifugal casting is also very important. The method that uses the centrifugal force to fill the filling, that means filling the molten metal into a rotating mold. Centrifugal casting is often a thin walled cylinder because after the pouring into the cast models, some of the models also it will be taken care of. Aluminum casting, horizontal casting, whereas what is called continuous casting process is this. You have to see that slowly it will come like this, slowly like this. Various methods of what is called the casting methods are there, but it depends upon the organization has to invest money on the casting process. One is the melting furnaces. Second one is already casting furnaces, and we have to see the second one is like this. The hazards is also very important to consider in the casting furnaces: heat, dust, and noise, as well as chemicals and the other hazards also. In this, what is called the burns, definitely burns is there. Heat stress is also there. The contact with hard surfaces of material can cause burns in the casting furnaces. Heat stress is also there, can cause the work-related diseases and impair worker performance and safety. Because of the hot temperature is there to the workforce, they always the body become dehydrated. We have to see that lemon water or the water will be given to the workforce continuously and see that continuous monitoring is necessary because of the heat stress is more of during the casting furnaces process. That's why we have to, as a safety officer, we have to see that the workforce behavior and workforce employees what is called the movement of the while pouring or taking up the mold shapes and all. Carefully observe the people were working nearby the casting furnaces first. Dust is also more because of the various casting models are there. Like for example, hard die cast is there, and the investment casting is there, sand casting is there, and centrifugal casting is there. There are some exposure to some dust is also to the atmosphere also. Unless otherwise, if you are not having the dust extraction system properly, the dust particles exposure to the materials to the workforce, thereby health hazards will be can occur. That's why inhaling the dust particles from the sand or other materials can cause health hazards. Also, definitely, we have to see that the dust extraction system should be properly uh, uh, installed and properly. We have to see as the safety officer. We have to see it should be properly work in process. Environmental pollution is also there because through the fumes, through the what is called dust, if the dust extraction system is not properly and the venting system is not proper, therefore the within the work spot, the workers they inhale these fumes, inhale the smokes and dust, thereby environmental pollution. Not only the employee will be a risk, but also environmental pollution is there because it will go to the atmospheric outside the industry also. The proper tapping of the dust is not there by the industry. Dust and fumes from sand casting foundries can pollute the atmosphere also. Unless otherwise, if you are not having the where the sand casting process is there, if you are not having the any dust action system properly, or tapping the dust or tapping the fumes by the dusting system and all, it's very difficult to control the environmental pollution hazards also. Therefore, the ambient air quality measurement test also to be conducted as per the consent order of the Schedule B also there. If the red category industries, of course, the steel industries all are in the, and comes under the red category industry only. Hearing damage also will be there. Noise is there because of the various noise of the compressor house as well as the pouring of the molten metal with the high temperatures and the extraction of the fumes, extraction of the heat and thermal conductivity to reduce the what is called the heat. A lot of things are there in the operation casting process. That's why the noise will be also more than 75 decibels. Also, we cannot control. Thereby, noise hazards will also be more. Hearing damage may be experienced. That's why always keep the employee away from the workforce, depending upon the pouring and all these things, and see that they are supposed to wear the earmuffs, not to allow any ear damage by the employees. Communication difficulties also there because of the noise is there. While telling the one employee is telling to another employee or co-employees what he is telling, he cannot understand because of the noise. Because the walkie-talkie is important, and the walkie-talkie also we have to see that it should be enough listenable or audible are also to be taken care of by the safety persons or by the organization culture also. Excessive noise pollution can make it difficult for employees to communicate also because co-employees cannot meet their expectations because of they cannot communicate what they want because of the sound levels and all. That's why these are things to be taken care of while uh, noise hazard can be handled by the organization. Coming to this, the hazards in the process of the casting process continuation according to the one thing, chemicals and other hazards also there. Bonds, already told, because of the various alkalis are there, detergents are there, other substances because of the molds or casting process we are using in the casting process. We are using the different materials in the casting of the different shapes and all. That's why you have to be taken very carefully. Birds and determinants, toxic fumes also can be addressed by the organization. How best we can tap them and sending again to the reprocess in order to not to expose to the atmosphere and thereby it will goes to the employee. That's why you have to be much care on this. Apart from this, the other results also there in the cast furnaces. The trauma injuries already discussed. Violent rupture of the reaction vessel can cause trauma injury. Sudden rupture is there in the reactor or sudden explosion is there. Immediately workforce will be getting very different stages where they having the fear and all these things. The trauma injuries will be happen. Radiation is also there because absence of material medium, the heat transfer from one material to another material. Thereby, workforce is having the high temperatures in the slab
S-
portions also. The
Sir,
metal
for
related.
the
And Lakshmi
hello.
Sir, tell me, sir.
Yes, sir. For this, why should we? What we should take the precaution for avoiding these all these injury and hazard? You have to explain
See,
about
first of all, we
hazards.
have to see that. Yes, sir, exactly. That's what I'm saying. These are the heat hazard, dust hazard, noise hazards.
So, what
Hazards
about
in the process of
precaution?
casting furnace means.
Yes, sir. We agree
That's what
agree
I'm saying,
about that.
sir.
Huh.
Yes, sir. See, what happens, sir? The heat burns is, for example, if you see that a dust is there. Without inhaling of dust, the dust extraction system properly installed by the organization. Heat is there. We have to see that air conditions in the operation room or by the what is called the operator who is operating the pouring of the they melt in the castings and all. That fellow kept in what is called some cool place, and thereby operating by the contract, operating by the crane and all this. We have to see that what is called the normal, the bonds will not be spilled to the employees, the distance to be maintained, and the each stresses means they have to proper what is called the clothing materials to be taken care of. Immediate nearby some water provision is there, immediate anything is there, you have taken care of the fire extinguishers, all these things. For example, dust is there, dust extraction system is taken care of. Environmental pollution, we have to see that sudden tapping of the all gases, whether it's going to the fumes or to the ESPs or not. We have to see that electrostatic precipitators or dust collectors are the within the sea, that we have to